Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Dvaita Chandra Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to this Chaitanya Charitamrita class. We are reading from section of Ādi-līlā, chapter 5, and we are in between of a big verse. Yes, you can see the verse over there. So let's recite and then we will take it forward. Yeah. Vasudeva Sankarshana Pradyumna Aniruddha Dvitiya Chaturvyuha Eiturya Vishuddha. 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 Vaishnavis. Vasudeva Sankarshana Pradyumna Aniruddha Dvitiya Chaturvyuha Eiturya Vishuddha. Vasudeva Sankarshana Pradyumna Aniruddha Dvitiya Chaturvyuha Eiturya Vishuddha. Word to word meaning. Vasudev, the expansion named Vasudev. Sankarshana, the expansion named Sankarshana. Pradyumna, the expansion named Pradyumna. Aniruddha, the expansion named Aniruddha. Dvitiya Chaturvyuha, the second quadruple expansion. This Turiya, transcendental. Vishuddha, free from all material contamination. Translation, please listen. Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha constitute the second quarter couple. They are purely transcendental. Okay, in the purport we are reading, actually this is a very long purport which has been covered in 3 classes. So today we are in the purport. If you will go down, there is a paragraph which starts with, we should always remember the difference between material and spiritual actions. It's a bit lengthy and at the same time technical, filled with a lot of philosophical points. So we'll try to simplify it for our devotees. So if you will see, there is a paragraph, it starts with we. We should always remember the difference. Yeah, it's yeah. Go ahead. No. Yeah. Go ahead. Still 8 paragraphs. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. Just 2 paragraphs now. Yes. Very good. All right. So everyone look at the board and I will recite here. We should always remember the difference between spiritual and material actions. The Supreme Lord, being all spiritual, can perform any act without external help. In the material world, if we want to manufacture an earthen pot, we need the ingredients, a machine, and also a laborer. But we should not extend this idea to the actions of the Supreme Lord, for He can create anything in a moment without that which appears necessary in our conception. When the Lord appears as an incarnation to fulfill a particular purpose, this does not indicate that He is unable to fulfill it without appearing. He can do anything simply by His will, but by His causeless mercy He appears to be dependent upon His devotees. Now Prabhupada gives the example of that statement. He appears as a son of Yashoda Mata, not because he is dependent on her care, but because he accepts such a role by His causeless mercy. When He appears for the protection of His devotees, which incarnation to Krishna came as protection for the devotees? Narsimha, yes. When He appears for the protection of His devotee, He naturally accepts trials and tribulation on their behalf. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord, being equally disposed towards every living being, has no enemies or no friends, but that He has a special affection for a devotee who always thinks of Him in love. What is that verse? Yeah, 930, if I'm not wrong. 939. No, in 9th chapter we don't have 39 verses. 29, yeah. 9th chapter has 34 verses only. Yeah, samoham sarva bhuteshu na medvesho asti na priya ye bhajanti tum mam bhaktya maititeshu chapyaham. So that's the verse actually, which Prabhupada has translated in his purport here in simple words. Therefore, neutrality and partiality are both among the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and they are properly adjusted by His inconceivable energy. The Lord, Achintya Shakti. So in Hindi or in simple word in Sanskrit it is known as Achintya Shakti, which we can't understand basically. We can't understand by our brain. That is the inconceivable energy. The Lord is Parabrahma, or the source of impersonal Brahma, which is His all-pervading feature of neutrality. In His personal feature, however, as the owner of all transcendental opulences, the Lord displays His partiality by taking the side of His devotees. Partiality, neutrality, and all such qualities are present in God. So basically 2 qualities have been mentioned over here, that at one point of time He is partial, at the another time He is not partial, He is impartial. So how can these both qualities can exist in a same person at the same time? That is the significance of inconceivable energy. So in that paragraph it's mentioned like, as a Brahma Jyoti, he is neutral, but as a Bhagavan, he is a person. So in a Bhagavan form, he is more, you can say, partial, but in a Brahma Jyoti or Brahman effulgence, he is neutral actually. He is just neutral. He does not like take any decision. In his personal feature, however, as the owner of all transcendental opulence, the Lord displays his partiality by taking side of his devotee. Partiality, neutrality, and all such qualities are present in God, otherwise they could not be experienced in the creation. Because these qualities are experienced here on the material world, that's why they are coming somewhere from the somewhere. So that they are coming from the spiritual world. So everything exists in Supreme Lord. And this is the reflection, the material world is the reflection. So whatever we are experiencing here, there must be some source of that. And that source is the Supreme Lord. And these qualities are existing in Him with what we are experiencing here in the reflection world. Since He is the total existence, all things are properly adjusted in the absolute. In the relative world, such qualities are displayed in a perverted manner. And therefore we experience the non-duality as a perverted reflection. Like for example, here we have happiness and distress, but in the spiritual world, the happiness and distress are also there, but they don't experience the happiness and distress the way we experience actually. I will draw some diagram after some time. We will understand it properly. But there is no logic to explain how thing happens in the realm of spirit. Wow. The Lord is sometimes described as beyond the range of the experience, but if we simply accept Lord's inconceivability, we can then adjust all things in Him. Non-devotees cannot understand the Lord's inconceivable energy, and consequently, for them, it is said that He is beyond the range of conceivable expression. So basically about the scientists, that they just cannot comprehend the inconceivable energy of the Lord. So they come up with the concept that there is some energy or there is some power which is existing or which is creating. So for them it's inconceivable energy of the Lord. So that's why Prabhupada says non-devotees cannot understand. It doesn't mean that every scientist is a non-devotee. There are some scientists, those who are devotees as well. So it's a broader category of broader category of non-devotees. So basically those who don't know the Vedic knowledge, they are known as non-devotees. Sometimes we have this conception, those who don't believe in God, they are non-devotees. Actually that's not the conception. Those who don't believe in God, they are not atheists. Those who don't believe in the Vedas, they are atheists. That's the right definition of atheism. That's why non-devotees cannot understand the Lord's inconceivable energy, and consequently for them it is said that He is beyond the range of conceivable expression. Okay, let's move ahead. The author of the Brahma Sutra accepts this fact and says that Shrutestu Shabda Mulyavat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being inconceivable to an ordinary man, can be understood only through the evidence of the Vedic injunction. The Skanda Puran confirm Achintya Khalu Ye Bhavyatna Tams Tarkena Yojayit. Matters inconceivable to a common man should not be a subject for argument. We find very wonderful quality even in such material things as jewels and drugs. Indeed, for their qualities often appear inconceivable. How many of you have ever experienced of inconceivable potency of the jewels? They, like in the astrology, when they subdue the effect of some planets, they give them some stones, stones. So these stones actually they have a power, and these power, they are inconceivable power. And similarly drugs, this is on the other hand now. So drugs, when people take drugs, this inconceivable. Like people don't know what happens to them. I don't know, at least I've seen people, those who are like hallucination, they develop some kind of a reality. And the same is the power with the jewels actually, the powerful jewels, the strong jewels. Yeah, once upon a time, someone gave me one stone, then he said like, you have it for few days. And that day I was supposed to travel through train from Delhi to some place, Chandigarh. And it never happened to me. I had it. I went to the railway station. Somehow the other I got into a wrong train, which was also supposed to leave the same platform at the same time. But I didn't check the timing, but this was another train which I just entered. And after a few hours when I woke up, I realized like there are a lot of, desert area, people are different, and the ladies wearing some different type of clothes with small children. Then I asked them where we are. Then they said that we are in Rajasthan. Rajasthan? I'm supposed to go to Chandigarh, and this train has brought me down to this. And then a whole day, actually, it was one of the strongest day I had. Then I got down from the railway station. I had a visa appointment in Chandigarh, by the way. And I got down, and then I tried to book flight from Jaipur. And then I took a cab, whatever the way. We were traveling fastest way we can travel to Jaipur, but we realized we cannot catch it. And then within that moment, we changed the route from, instead of going to the Jaipur, we start going to the Delhi. And I booked the flight from Delhi to Chandigarh because it's a visa appointment and I have to be there at 4 o'clock. And we were driving the car like 200 km per hour to reach Delhi. And I just saw the flight flying in front of my eyes. And then somehow or the other I went back to my temple. I traveled from Delhi, and then the whole day I traveled, and then I went to Delhi, back, and then whatever happened, and then I again booked the appointment. Then something wrong happened. And then I contacted that devotee who gave me this. It never happened to me that I missed that kind of train and that kind of a day. I have the whole day I'm traveling and nothing is. So then I expressed to him that this is the power of stone. My intelligence was not working properly and I was just taking decision haphazardly. So that's what Prabhupada is mentioning over here. Like, we find very wonderful qualities even in such material things as jewels and drugs. Indeed, their qualities often appear inconceivable. Wow. Moving ahead. Therefore, if we do not attribute inconceivable potency to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we cannot establish His supremacy. It is because of these inconceivable potencies that the glories of the Lord have always been accepted as difficult to understand. So similarly, Supreme Lord also has inconceivable potency devotees. Now this inconceivable potency is one of the potency of the Lord. Basically there are multiple energies. We generally hear in the Prabhupada books there are three types of energy: internal energy, external energy, and marginal energy. So external energy is the energy which is Durga, or you can say Mahamaya, which runs this material world. And now within the internal energy, Yog Maya, there are variety of energy. There are 16 types of energy, and like energies like, you can say Lila Shakti, Kripa Shakti, or Achintya Shakti, Samharana Shakti, which destroys the material world. And you can say Antardhyan Shakti, the Shakti by which you cannot see the Dham. So Dham sometimes will not give you the real, you can say, picture. We will see the external arrangement of in the material world or in the spiritual world or in the Dham over there. So what exactly happens? The Dham covers himself. So you will see the external roads, or maybe when we say like management, okay, we will see that, okay, Vrindavan is in the part of UP. So that's called Antardhyan Shakti of the Dham. So Dham uncovers himself. He will not, it's a living Dham, but the Dham will not make available to yourself. So this is one of the energy of the Lord by which it happens. For some devotees, those who have transcendental vision, they can see, okay, yes, Krishna Balaram, they are still playing. Okay, Gopis and Radharani and the Sakhis, they are still dancing. So that's a transcendental vision. And why it doesn't happen? Because of the inconceivable potency of the Lord. So these are energies of the Lord, my dear Vaishnavas. It is because of these inconceivable potencies that the glories of the Lord have always been accepted as difficult to understand. Yeah, why we can't understand everything in the spiritual world? Because if you will understand everything, that means your intelligence is bigger than the spiritual world or the Lord. So if you can understand the Shastras or everything in the Shastras, then means your intelligence is higher than the Shastras. And that's why Jiva Goswami and Prabhupada in the beginning of the scriptures, they mentioned that you need to understand one thing that you cannot understand it. Yeah. You need to understand one thing that you cannot understand it. And that's the intellectual humility. That's the intellectual humility. We cannot say that, yes, I have mastered it. Because from the grey matter of the brain, it's pretty difficult to understand everything which is happening in the spiritual world. What to speak of the spiritual world, my dear devotees? Even the scientists, they became perplexed when they see the complexity of this universe. And even the scientists, after studying, they're giving their whole life to study of the whole creation, they came to this conclusion that it's beyond their, it's inconceivable to them even. Even the scientists, those who have like from the day one, they are spending their meditation, trying to unpack this material world. And after analyzing all the galaxies, all the universes, all the planets, they just become overwhelmed by the arrangement which has been done. And they say that, I think we have not discovered anything. And even if we were talking about scientists, we go to the Brahmaji, it comes in the Bhagavatam that after, observing this whole universe who he himself has created, he said that I have not understood it. And then we are talking about the spiritual world, where another level of potencies are working. So that's why it's inconceivable. And how exactly it appears, or how we are convinced that if this is inconceivable, then how can we practice Krishna consciousness? And that's where the path of Bhakti Yoga comes. Divya Gyan Hirdaya Prakashita. So that Divya Gyan actually, it's been revealed, it's not achieved. That's the main difference between the Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. In the Bhakti Yoga, these things have been awarded. They have not been achieved by your personal effort. They have been given to you by someone. So that's the very basic nature of knowledge, even within the realm of spirituality. So they have been revealed. Moving to the next paragraph. Ignorance and the jugglery of words are very common in human society, but they do not help one understand the inconceivable energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we accept such ignorance and word jugglery, we cannot accept the Supreme Lord's perfection in 6 opulence. For example, one of the opulences of the Supreme Lord is complete knowledge. Therefore, how could ignorance be conceivable in him? Vedic instruction and sensible argument establish that Lord's maintaining the cosmic manifestation and simultaneously being indifferent to the activities of its maintenance cannot be contradictory because of his inconceivable energy. To a person who is always absorbed in the thoughts of snakes, a rope always appears to be a snake. And similarly, to a person bewildered by material qualities and devoid of knowledge of the Absolute, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears according to the diverse bewildered conclusions. Someone might argue that the Absolute would be affected by the duality if he were both all cognizance, Brahman, and the personality of Godhead with the 6 opulence in full, Bhagavan. To refute such an argument, the aphorism Swarupa Davyam Ikshate declares that in spite of appearance, there is no chance of duality in the Absolute, for he is but one in diverse manifestation. Understanding that the Absolute displays varied pastimes by the influence of his energy at once remove the apparent incongruity of his inconceivable opposite energies. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the following description of this inconceivable potency of the Lord. A very important verse and very easy to understand, what we just read. Karmani anihasya bhava bhavasya te durgashrayo dhari bhavat palayanam kalatmano yat paramad yutoshaya swatam rate kidyati dhir vidamahya. Although the Supreme Personality of God has nothing to do, he nevertheless acts. Although he is always unborn, he nevertheless takes birth. Although he is time, fearful to everyone, he flees Mathura in fear of his enemy to take shelter in a fort. Although he is self-sufficient, he married 16,000 women. These pastimes seems like bewildering contradiction even to the most intelligent. Wow. Had these activities of the Lord not been a reality, sages would not have been puzzled by them. Therefore, such activities should never be considered imaginary. Whenever the Lord desires, his inconceivable energy, Yogmaya, serves him in creating and performing such pastime. The scriptures known as Pancharatra Shastras are recognized Vedic scriptures that has been accepted by the great acharyas. These scriptures are not the products of the mode of passion or ignorance. Learned scholars and brahmanas therefore always refer to them as Sattvatam Samhitas. The original speaker of these scriptures is Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is specially mentioned in Moksha Dharma 349-68, which is a part of the Shanti Parv of Mahabharat. Liberated sages like Narada and Vyas, who are free from the 4 defects of the conditional soul and propagators of these scriptures, Sri Narad Muni is the original speaker of the Pancharatra Shastras. Srimad Bhagavatam is also considered as Satvata Sahitas. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared Srimad Bhagavatam Purana Amalam. Srimad Bhagavatam is a spotless Puran. Malicious editors and scholars who attempt to misrepresent the Pancharatra Shastras to refute their regulation are most abominable. In the modern age, such malicious scholars have been commented misleading upon the Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken by Krishna, to prove that there is no Krishna. Wow! How Mayavadis have misinterpreted the Pancharatric Vidhi will be shown below. So now Prabhupada is going to mention 4 references how Shankaracharya has modified, or Mayavadi generally, they modify the work which is already given. Let's read it. In commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra 2.2.42, Shripad Shankaracharya, Prabhupada mentioned Shripad. He does not mention, giving respect to Shankaracharya. Yeah, because he is authority actually. And originally he is Lord Shiva. So he is seeing not just him as a Shankaracharya, but Prabhupada is seeing him as a Lord Shiva actually, and that's why he is giving respect, Shripad Shankaracharya. Yeah, that's how actually, that's the etiquette in the Vedic civilization. We may not agree with the philosophy of someone, but we never disagree as a person to someone. And that's the qualification, that's the significance of having a personalism in your personality. We don't disrespect impersonalist. We may not agree with the philosophy of the impersonalism. There is a difference between when we deal with person and when we deal with philosophy. Generally, whenever Prabhupada used to meet Christian preachers or whatever other tradition, religion people, Prabhupada used to ask one question: what is your philosophy? He was never disrespectful to any. Even Prabhupada used to say, Jesus is our guru actually. So that's the attitude. Sometimes when we hear about the wrong philosophy, we condemn even the person who was propagating that philosophy. So as a person, we never disrespect someone, but philosophy, we argue like anything. There's a great pastime of Prabhupada when Prabhupada met Mishraji in his studio over there in US, and Prabhupada used to argue, or because he was speaking about different philosophy, they could not go well together, and Prabhupada has to leave Mishra's studio and shift to some other place because of the difference in the opinion. And then later on, many years after, when Prabhupada got success in US and Mishraji, he came back to Bombay, and they happened to meet each other, that same Mishraji. And now when Prabhupada met Mishraji, they met so lovingly with each other. Then one of the disciples of Prabhupada, he asked, Prabhupada is the same who did not allow you to do kirtan in his studio, and he did not allow you to speak your philosophy. Then Prabhupada clarified to that disciple that actually in philosophy we argue like anything, but in person we deal like very properly. That's Vaishnavism. That's Vaishnavism actually. That's not been that's kind of a Madhyamadhikari kind of person. He knows how to deal with other people. Yes. Yeah. Shripad Shankaracharya has claimed that Shankarshan is a jiva, an ordinary living entity, but there is no evidence in any Vedic scripture that the devotees of the Lord have ever said that Shankarshana is an ordinary living entity. So basically this is the first argument where Prabhupada will hammer on that point, that Shankarshan is a jiva. So, and we will speak about it if the time will allow, that how there is a difference between the jiva and Vishnu Tattva. That's the main crux of this purport. that Jiva is a different bowl in your plate and Vishnu Tattva is a different bowl in your plate. So these are two different bowls altogether. And there is a difference between the Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva. There is a difference between the spiritual world and the material world. So what are the differences? We will try to figure it out. His infallible plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Vishnu category, and he is beyond the creation of material nature. He is the source of all living entities. The Upanishad declare Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. He is the supreme living entity among all living entities. Therefore, he is Vibhu Chaitanya, the greatest. He is directly the cause of cosmic manifestation and infinitesimal living being. He is infinite living entity and ordinary living entities are infinitesimal. Therefore, he is never to be considered an ordinary living beings, for that would be against the conclusion of the authorized scriptures. The living entity are also beyond the limitation of birth and death. This is the version of the Vedas, and it is accepted by those who follow the scriptural injunctions and who have actually descended in the disciplic succession. Second, in answer to Shankaracharya's commentary on the Vedanta Sutra 2243, it must be said that the original Vishnu of all Vishnu categories, which are distributed in several ways, is Mula Sankarshan. Mula means the original, Sankarshan is also Vishnu, but from him all other Vishnus expand. This is confirmed in Brahma Samhita 546, wherein it is stated that just as a flame transformed from another flame acts like the original, so the Vishnus who emanate from the Mula Sankarshan are as good as the original Vishnu. One should worship that Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda, who thus expands himself. Basically, this is the translation of Govindam Adi Purusham Tamham Bhajami. In reply to the commentary of Shankaracharya on the 44th aphorism, now in the first we read about 42, in the second paragraph we studied about 43. Now this is the third argument from the 44th of the Vedanta Sutra commentary of Shankaracharya. It may be said that no pure devotee strictly follow the principles of Pancharatra will ever accept the statement that all the expansion of the Vishnu are different identities. For this idea is completely false. Even Sripad Shankaracharya in his commentary on the 44th aphorism has accepted that the personality of Godhead can automatically expand himself variously. Therefore, his commentary on the 42nd aphorism and his commentary on the 44th aphorism are contradictory. It is a defect of Mayavadi commentaries that they make one statement in one place and contradictory statement in another place as a tactic to refute the Bhagavad school. Thus, Mayavadi commentaries don't even follow regulative principle. It should be noted that Bhagavad school accepts the quadruple expansion of Narayana. So, my dear devotees, when it came, go thoda piche jana. Yeah, it is a defect of no. Thus, Mayavadi's commentators do not even follow regulative principle. Actually, these regulative principles are not the four regulative principles. They are the regulative principle of the Bhakti Yoga, the 64 limbs of the Bhakti Yoga. Yeah, so it's not that the Mayavadis are not following the four regulative. They follow actually. It's pretty simple for them actually to follow. Yeah, they don't have any issue with smoking, intoxication, meat eating, or illicit sex. They're pretty simple. They can easily, even the impersonalists, they can control these urges. So these are common things on the path of transcendental, you can say, or on the path of spirituality, that everyone can follow this basic principle. But when this statement came, don't even follow the regulative principle, there's a regulative principle of the Bhakti Yoga. And even in the Prabhupada purports or in his lectures, it comes occasionally that if one follows the regulative principle and chants 16 rounds, then one goes back home, back to Godhead. So not all the time it's for regulative principle. It's actually regulative principles of the Bhakti Yoga. What are the regulative principles? And they are like the 64 limbs, 5 potent forms of the devotional service, and all Guru Padashraya and all the stuff which is explained in Nectar of Devotion. It should be noted that the Bhagavad school accepts the quadruple expansion of Narayana, but that doesn't mean that it accepts many gods. Devotees knows perfectly well the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one without a second. They are never pantheists. Pantheists means worshippers of many gods. For this is against the injunction of the Vedas. Devotees completely believe with a strong faith that the Narayana is transcendental and has inconceivable proprietorship of various transcendental potency. We therefore recommend that scholars consult. Wow. Now see, this section I understand it's highly technical and highly philosophical with multiple points. That's why in the works of Srila Prabhupada you will see he brought all these contradictory points and he smashed them, gave them solution. At the same time, you will see in the work of Prabhupada that after explaining and giving the conclusion, he asked his audience to refer even the other literatures. If someone wants to go into the deeper, that's called honesty in teaching scriptures. In South India, there are teachers that if a single student will come, they will educate them. They will not see that how many people are there. That's called honesty in education. Honesty, loyalty in education. And that's what Prabhupada is reflecting here through that line. We therefore recommend that scholars consult Laghu Bhagavatamritam of Srila Rupa Goswami, where these ideas are explicitly stated. Sripad Shankaracharya has tried to prove that Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Nirodha expand through cause and effect. He has compared them with earth and earthen pots. That is completely ignorant. However, for there is no such thing as the cause and effect in their expansion. Nanyat yat sad asat param. The Kurma Puran also confirms Deha Dehi Vibheda Yam Neshwarya Vidyate Kvachit. There is no difference between the body and soul in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Cause and effect are material. For example, it is seen that the father's body is the cause of son's body, but the soul is neither the cause nor effect. On the spiritual platform, there are none of the differences we find in the cause and effect. Since all the forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are spiritually supreme, they are equally controllers of material nature. Standing on the fourth dimension, they are predominating figures of the transcendental platform. There is no trace of the material contamination in their expansion because the material laws cannot influence them. There is no such rule as cause and effect outside of the material world. Therefore, the understanding of the cause and effect cannot approach the full transcendental complete expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic literature proves this. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamuchyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. The Personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because He is complete perfect, all emanation from Him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete by itself. Because He is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from Him, He remains the complete balance. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 5.1. It is most apparent that non-devotees violate the rules and regulations of the devotional service to equate the whole cosmic manifestation, which is the external feature of Vishnu, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of Maya, or with his quadruple expansion. Equating Maya with the Spirit or Maya with the Lord is a sign of atheism. The cosmic creation, which manifests life in forms from Brahma to the ant, is an external feature of the Supreme Lord. It comprises 1/4 of the state energies as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Ekam sen sthito jagat. Now this question generally arises, that okay, if the material world is the 1/4, then what is the 3/4? Yeah. So 1/4 is the material world, and another 1/4 is the Brahma Jyoti, and another 1/4 is the Vaikuntha, and the last 1/4 is Goloka. That's how it makes one. It was not according to the size. It's according to the level of the consciousness. The cosmic manifestation of the illusory energy, we have to go, there's a lot pending. Energy is the material nature, and everything within the material nature is made up of matter. Therefore, one should not try to compare the expansion of the material nature to the Chatur view, the quadruple expansion of the personality of Godhead. But unfortunately, the Mayavadi school unreasonably attempts to do this. Fourth point, to answer Shankaracharya's commentary on the Vedanta Sutra 2 to 45. The substance of the transcendental qualities and their spiritual nature is described in Lagu Bhagavatamritam Purva 5:208 to 214 as follows. Some says that the transcendental must be void of all qualities because the qualities are manifested only in matter. Or according to them, all qualities are like temporary flickering mirage. But this is not acceptable. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolute, His qualities are non-different from Him, His form, name, qualities and everything else pertaining to Him are as spiritual as He is. Every qualitative expansion of the Absolute Personality of Godhead is identical with Him. Since the Absolute Truth, the Personality of Godhead, is the reservoir of all pleasure, all transcendental qualities that expand from Him are also reservoir of pleasure. This is confirmed in the scriptures known as Brahma Tarak, which states that Supreme Lord Hari is qualified by Himself, and therefore Vishnu and His pure devotees and their transcendental qualities cannot be different from their persons. In the Vishnu Puran, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in the following words. Let the Supreme Personality of Godhead be merciful towards us. His existence is never affected by the material qualities. In the same Vishnu Puran, it is also stated that the qualities attributed to the Supreme Lord, such as knowledge, opulence, beauty, strength, and influence, are known to be non-different from Him. This is also confirmed in the Padam Puran, which explains that whenever the Supreme Lord is described as having no qualities, this should be understood to indicate that He is devoid of material qualities. Basically, devotees, the people get confused when they say Nirgun. So when it is said Nirgun, that means He does not have any material qualities. But He has spiritual qualities. In the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam 1:16-29, it is said that, O Dharma, protector of the religious principle, all noble and sublime qualities are eternally manifested in the person of Krishna. Devotees and the transcendentalists who aspire to become faithful also desire to possess such transcendental qualities. It is therefore to be understood that Lord Shri Krishna, the transcendental form of the absolute bliss, is the fountain head of all pleasure, transcendental qualities, and inconceivable potency. In this connection, we may recommend reference to Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd Canto, chapter 26, verse 21, 25, 27, 28. So this is a reference regarding to this confrontation which Prabhupada is giving over here. Now Prabhupada is bringing Sripad Ramanujacharya. Wow. Sripad Ramanujacharya has also refuted the arguments of Shankara in his own commentary on Vedanta Sutra, which is known as Sri Bhashya. This is the commentary in our tradition is known as Govinda Bhashya. So similarly in the Sri Sampradaya they have Sri Bhashya by Ramanujacharya, and Prabhupada must have gone through that, and that's why he is bringing here it, Sripad Ramanujacharya commentary of Sri Bhashya. What Ramanujacharya is saying, Sripad Shankaracharya has tried to equate the Pancharatra with the philosophy of the atheist Kapila, and thus he has tried to prove that the Pancharatras contradict the Vedic injunction. The Pancharatras state that the personality of Jiva called Sankarshana has emerged from the Vasudev, the supreme cause of all causes, and that Pradyumna, the mind, has come from Sankarshana, and the Aniruddha, the ego, had come from the Pradyumna. But one cannot say that the living entity takes birth or is created, for such a statement is against the injunction of the Vedas. As stated in the Katha Upanishad 2:18, the living entities as individual spiritual souls can have neither birth nor death. All the Vedic literature declares that the living entities are eternal. Therefore, when it is stated that the Shankarshana is Jiva, this indicates that he is the predominating deity of the living entity. Similarly, Pradyumna is the predominating entity of the mind, and Aniruddha is the predominating deity of the ego. It has been said that the Pradyumna, the mind, was produced from the Sankarshana, but if Sankarshana was a living entity, this could not be accepted because a living entity cannot be the cause of the mind. The Vedic injunctions state that everything, including life, mind, and senses, comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is impossible for the mind to be produced by a living entity, for the Vedas state that everything comes from the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord. Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha all have all the potent features of the Absolute Personality of Godhead, according to the revealed scriptures, which contain undeniable facts that no one can refute. Therefore, these members of the Quadruple manifestation are never to be considered ordinary living beings. Each of them is a plenary expansion of the Absolute Godhead, and thus each is identical with the Supreme Lord in the knowledge, opulence, energy, influence, prowess, and potency. The evidence of the Pancharatras cannot be neglected. Only untrained person who have not genuinely studied the Pancharatras think that the Pancharatras contradict the Shrutis regarding the birth and the beginning of the living entity. In this connection, we must accept the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, which says that the absolute personality of Godhead, who is known as the Vasudeva and who is very affectionate towards his surrendered devotees, expand himself in the quadruple forms who are subordinate to him and at the same time identical with him in all respects. The Pushkara Samhita state that the scriptures that recommend that the Brahmanas worship the quadruple forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called Agamas. Agamas are basically authorized Vedic scriptures. These are the scriptures which talks about the worship and the temple construction or temple decoration structure of the temple. Agamas are that. In all Vedic literature, it is said that the worshipping these quadruple forms is as good as worshipping the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, Vasudeva, who is in his different expansion complete in six opulence, can accept the offering from his devotees of the result of their prescribed duties. Worshipping the expansion for the pastimes such as Narasimha, Rama, Shesh and Kurma promote one to the worship of the Sankarshan quadruple. From that position, one is raised to the platform of worshipping Vasudeva, the Supreme Brahman, and the Pushkar Samhita it is said that if one fully worships according to the regulative principles, one can attain the Supreme Personality of God, Vasudeva. Now again here, when it is mentioned, one fully worship according to the regulative principle. These are the 64 limbs of the Bhakti Yoga actually. It is to be accepted that the Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha are as good as the Lord Vasudeva, for they all have inconceivable power and can accept transcendental forms like Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha are never born, but they can manifest themselves in the various incarnation before the eyes of the pure devotees. This is the conclusion of all Vedic literature, that the Lord can manifest himself before his devotees by his inconceivable power is not against the teachings of the Pancharatras. Since Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha are respectively the predominating deities of all living entities, the total mind and total ego, the designation of Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha as Jiva, mind and ego are never contradictory to the statements of the scriptures. These terms identify these deities just as the terms sky and light sometimes identify with the absolute Brahman. The scriptures completely deny the birth or the production of the living entity. In the Parama Samhita, it is described that the material nature which is used for others' purpose is factually inert and always subject to transformation. The field of the material nature is the arena of the activities of the fruitive actors, and since the material field is extremely related with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is also eternal. In every Samhita, Jiva has been accepted as eternal, and in the Pancharatras, the birth of the Jiva is completely denied. Anything that is produced must also be annihilated. Therefore, if we accept the birth of a living entity, we also have to accept his annihilation. But since the Vedic literatures say that the living entity is eternal, one should not think that the living being to be produced at a certain time. In the beginning of the Parama Samhita, it is definitely stated that the face of the material nature is constantly changeable. Therefore, beginning, annihilation and all such terms are applicable only in the material nature. Considering all these points, one should understand that the Shankaracharya statement that Sankarshan is born as a Jiva is completely against the Vedic statements. His assertions are completely refuted by the above arguments. In this connection, the commentary of Sridhar Swami on Srimad Bhagavatam 3134 is very helpful. So again, Prabhupada is recommended for us to go to the commentary of Sridhar Swami on Bhagavatam 3134. Now, this is very powerful. We are concluding it. Don't worry. It's coming to end, finally. Now, this paragraph, Prabhupada is taking us in a totally different direction. For a detailed refutation of Shankaracharya's argument, attempting to prove Shankaracharya's an ordinary living being, one may refer to Srimad Sudarshanacharya's commentary on Sri Bhashya, which is known as Shruta Prakashita. Wow, Prakashika. Shruta Prakashika. Prakashika means enlightening, Shruta. By Shruta, Shrutis and Smritis. So he has given a commentary on Shrutis, Prakashita. The original quarter couple, Krishna, Baladev, Pradyumna and Aniruddha, expand into another quarter couple which is present in the Vaikuntha planets of the spiritual sky. Therefore, the quarter couple in the spiritual sky are the second manifestation of the original quarter couple in Dwarka. As explained above, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha all are changeless, transcendental planetary expansion of the Supreme Lord, who has no relation to the material modes. The Sankarshan form in the second quarter couple is not only a representation of the Balram, but also the original cause of the causal ocean, where the Karunadakshayi Vishnu lies asleep, breathing out the seeds of innumerable universes. In the spiritual sky, there is a spiritual creative energy technically called Shuddha Sattva, which is the pure spiritual energy that sustains all the Vaikuntha planets and with the full opulences of knowledge, wealth, prowess, etc. All these exchanges of the Shuddha Sattva displays the potency of Mahasankarshan, who is the ultimate reservoir of all individual living entities who are suffering in the material world. When the cosmic creation is annihilated, the living entities who are indestructible by nature rest in the body of Mahasankarshan. The Sankarshan is therefore sometimes called as total Jiva. As spiritual spark, the living entities have the tendency to be inactive in the association of the material energy, just as the spark fire have the tendency to be extinguished as soon as they leave on the fire. The spiritual nature of the living entities can be rekindled, however, in the association of the Supreme Being. Because the living being can appear either in a matter or in a spirit, the Jiva is called marginal potency. Sankarshan is the original Karna Vishnu, who is the original form who creates the universe, and that Sankarshan is but plenary expansion of Sri Nityanand Ram. Finally, we could complete that purport, and I can see every one of you have been enlightened, divinely enlightened with this transcendental reading of this purport. So, living in the last 5-7 minutes, let me simplify it what we studied. Yeah. Yes. Connecting. Yes. Yes. Press the yes. Jiva is trying to connect to the Lord. Don't worry, it will come again. Yes, just press the yes. Good. My dear devotees, let's try to simplify it. Oh, this is too bad. Krishna expands himself into two things. One is Balaram, and one is in the internal energy, or many times we say Radharani. So now there are two sides expansion. One expansion is happening from the side of Balramji, and one expansion is happening from the side of energy, Srimati Radharani. So from the Balram comes the first quarter couple, first Chaturvyu, and that is Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. And this is the first Maha Chaturvyu or first quarter couple. And from the Sankarshan comes Narayana. And from the Narayana comes the second quarter couple, which we just read about, and again Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. This is the second quarter couple, Mahachaturvyu or second quarter couple. And from the Sankarshana now comes Karunadakshayi Vishnu, actually Mahavishnu. And sometimes we say from the Pradyumna it's Garbhodakshayi Vishnu or Shirodakshayi Vishnu or Aniruddha Shirodakshayi Vishnu. And these three basically they become the Purusha avatar, and they run this material world. And now you know that Mahavishnu is lying in an ocean, and from his pores universes are coming up here and here. And one of the universe structure, if you see, now the Brahma Loka is here and Bhuloka is there, Patal Loka is there. And now this is two, let's make it like this, yeah. And the whole ocean, half of the universe is filled with Garbhodak Sagar. And the Garbhodak Vishnu is sitting over there with the Lakshmi ji, and from the navel this whole structure came, where the Brahmaji is residing here, we living entities are here in the Bhulok, and this is Patal, Narkalok and all, like the Patal, the lower planetary system. And if we go to the expansion of, on the side of Srimati Radharani, like now she expands herself into multifarious energies. That's what we talked about, that there are 16 varieties of the internal energy, and one of them is like Leela Shakti, Kripa Shakti, and like this expansion in different energy, one energy comes as the Jiva actually. The living entity is expansion of the energy. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mame Vansha Jiv Loke, that's a broader understanding that everything is coming from Krishna. But Jiva is the expansion of one of the energy, and that is a special type of energy that this Jiva can be influenced by the material energy as well, and Jiva can be influenced by the spiritual energy. That's why the name of this energy is marginal energy. That is the Tatastha energy. Like for example, if we have any ocean, now on the ocean there is a line demarcating, like this is not in the ocean, at the same time not on the land. So this is the same situation with the living entity. The living entity can be the part of the material world, can be influenced by the spiritual energy as well. Now this opens one very beautiful discussion, that there is we have spiritual world and we have material world. And we discussed in the material world we have planetary system, and here we have, you can say, a kind of Brahma Jyoti, and generally we design in a yellow. So that's called 1/4 of the creation. So this is 1/4 and this is 1/4, and within the spiritual world we have Vaikuntha's planet where the Lord is residing, and that's called 1/4. And in the spiritual world we have Golok Vrindavan, and that's called the final Radha Krishna over there. So that's called 1/4. And now what's the point over here is coming, basically all the expansion which are happening in the spiritual world, they are expansion of lordship or Krishna, we say, and Krishna expands himself into different portion like Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. They all are actually on a different platform, that's called transcendental, and the word came in the translation of the purport which we read, Turiya. Now all of you know that this material world is governed by 3 modes of material nature. 3 modes of the material nature governs this material world, and the spiritual world is governed by which mode? Yeah, Shuddha Sattva. It's not governed by the material, so that's called Shuddha Sattva. So basically the whole calculation, Shuddha Sattva, so whole governing principle of the spiritual world and material world is different. Similarly, let me give you one glimpse. In the spiritual world, 6 seasons exist, but they exist in such a way that they came to the Yogamaya and they ask where we are supposed to go today and where we are supposed to serve. But in the material world, these 6 seasons exist, but here they control the jiva. They are fixed, like now monsoon is coming up, then the winter will come, summer, autumn and spring. They are fixed. And another thing is, in this material world, beauty is birth, death, old age, disease. So these are again trap, or you can say material constriction for the jiva. If you will see in the spiritual world, the pastime of Radha Krishna, where they may be using, just like Krishna appeared as a child, so they, again in the spiritual world, birth, death, old age, disease exist in order to support the pastime. Sometimes Krishna has headache and he says that this will be only removed by the dust of my devotees. Now how can the headache can exist in the spiritual world? How can Krishna appear through the Devaki or through the Yashoda? How can Krishna have a feverish, and this fever will go only by the water brought by the most chaste lady of the Braj? So all these birth, death, old age, disease, they participate in such a way that they support the pastime of the Lordship. And similarly, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga and even all the atheistic philosophy, they also exist in such a way that Krishna uses the Karam Mimamsa philosophy in order to refute the Nanda Maharaj's argument of worshipping Indra. And here in the material world, these philosophies, why we condemn these philosophies here? Because Jiva takes shelter of these philosophies or the worship of the demigods or get trapped in the cycle of birth, death, old age, disease, that the person identify with this material world and cannot go to the spiritual world. That's why we say no demigod worship. But in the spiritual world, Srimati Radharani goes for the worship of Surya Dev. And they may go to the worship of some Kali Mata. So all these pastimes, all these personalities, they exist in the spiritual world in terms of a service. Similarly, time. In the spiritual world, time and space, they serve in the spiritual world to serve the pastime of Radha Krishna. When Radha Krishna, they have to meet, then spiritual world contract, they reduce the space and the time, it just took nothing for Radha Krishna to meet. At the same time, when Jatila and Kutila, they have to run after Radharani, the space and time expands. And the time expands. They just add. Yogamaya add time factor. Yogamaya add space factor. And that's just increase. And similarly, in the material world, time and space, they are fixed. You cannot change it. They are there. The space cannot change. If you have to go to Jaipur or Delhi, everywhere, it will take particular time. It will take particular space actually. So similarly, all the different elements which are present in the spiritual world, they are transcendental. They serve over there. But at the same time, when this material world, they became the stringent laws of material nature. That's why Prabhupada mentioned in his works that this world is accompanied by stringent laws of material nature. The laws which are being made over here, they are very strict. And that's why we say that this material world is a jail, actually. That's not, and the spiritual world is a home. Back home, back to Godhead. So the real home is actually where there is a freedom of space, time, seasons, and no restriction of sun and moon. Yeah, even the sun and moon, they exist, but they serve actually. And Krishna says, Na tad bhashate suryo in Bhagavad Gita. That means not the mechanical, the constrained moon or sun. But the sun and moon which exist in the spiritual world, they are actually the servant of the Lord. And they serve according to the need and the direction given by the Yogamaya. That's the basic concept. Like in the spiritual world, everything is transcendental, and in the material world, everything is material. That's why we call it material world. If I say to this table that you are beautiful, this table will not smile at me. But if I say to some devotee that you look good, you look beautiful, that person will smile. So that there is a difference between the matter and the spirit. The spirit has feelings. If I push this table like this table will not say anything to me. But if I push my brother or sister like this, they will immediately react. That's the difference between matter and spirit. So similarly, the jiva, the living entity, is spirit in nature. And that's what Prabhupada used to hammer again and again, that we are not this body, we are soul. That we are not this matter, we are living entity, we are eternal, and we belong to the spiritual world actually. We have been trapped here in the jail of this material world with these laws of three modes of material nature, of these three kaleshas, of this cycle of birth, death, old age, disease. And that's how, when the jiva gets liberated and goes to the spiritual world, that's the real destination. Let me ask you one simple question. How many of you are more than 20 years old? How many of you are 20 years, more than 20? And that's what Prabhupada used to say, like, we are not this body, we are soul. And that's why he used to hammer again and again. This conception is so deeply rooted. Like, whenever someone asks like this, and that's what Prabhupada was mentioning in the purport, like, the jiva is eternal, jiva is not material, and jiva is, and Sankarshan is Vishnu Tattva, jiva is Jiv Tattva. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandai.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna